Welcome and good evening. I am Brown Girl Interrupting, and this is Pain to Power Leading with Love. And tonight we have a very, very special guest, which I'm really excited to introduce to you in a few moments. But before we do, I have really had a lot of reflection this week, and particularly in this journey of pain to power, is some things that I've been reflecting on in terms of how in pain we are oftentimes also in a place of needing to forgive ourselves and others. And so I have a quote. For me, forgiveness and compassion are always linked. How do we hold people accountable for wrongdoing and yet at the same time remain in touch with their humanity enough to believe in their capacity to be transformed? And this is from Bell Hooks, the writer and activist. And I have to give credit where credit is due. It was actually shared to me by one of my colleagues, and but it really hit me because I think again, part of this journey is forgiveness and humanity, and that connection between just understanding that everyone is going through different things and everyone is in some space of pain trying to get to their power. So, how do we continue to see their humanity? How do we continue to forgive and find that peace? And so that's our journey. And tonight we have a very, very special guest, which I am so excited to introduce. She is a poet and a performer, and she is actually our first female interviewee. I mean, and honestly, beautiful soul, brilliant mind, and fire. So, Whiskey Girl, welcome.
Thank you. It's super. I'll take that. I'll take that.
Yes.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. So, and people don't know this, but we actually met just about a year ago at a spoken
Yeah.
word performance.
Yeah.
And I have to say that I asked you here because I was completely taken by you and by the way that you held the stage and the way that you took words and painted what pain to power was to me. Um, and it was beautiful and it was powerful and it was transformational. And so I'm asking you here today because this is Pain to Power Leading with Love. That's the name of
I
the show.
love that.
Where
Yeah.
I'm going with it. And so I just want to start it off by asking, what has your journey of pain to power been?
Oh my goodness, that's loaded. I'll be succinct. I think my pain to power as a woman, as a Black woman growing up and being alive in today's society, the pain has been being boxed in to what other people want you to be, kind of the pressure to show up as others want you, and the pain of just not believing in yourself, not understanding who I am, and allowing myself to be tossed and turned in the wind of other people's abuse. And really, when you accept unfair treatment and being devalued in one situation, it bleeds into everything else. So for me, it was trauma and abuse, emotional abuse in relationships. And then it has been a pattern in all of my relationships, as far as like coworkers, family members, every single place. So the power came in just realizing that it's up for me to value myself and assert that to other people and show them what valuing me looks like, and a total realignment with, okay, there's power in the love you have for yourself. So that's really like my story in a nutshell, is just learning what it is to love myself, who I actually am, and not the person that I pretend to be. And it took me forever to figure out that I was showing up as somebody else. I don't even know who that woman was.
But that's quite a journey, right? Like it is a complicated journey
It's
to
very
even
complicated.
find your own voice. Like for you, how did you come to realize, even like you said, like you were someone that you weren't, right? And now you
Mhm.
are the person that you are meant to be. So
Yes, finally.
how and how different are those two people for you in your journey?
Um, they are very different. I would say that finding it has definitely been through my art. When I decided, I used to write all the time when I was in high school. And after going through being in a marriage where I was unhappy and I had to leave that marriage and it broke my heart. I got married really young and I think I was out of there by the time I was 25. And I was thinking to myself, this is why I love you so much because we have the same origin story, right? Into superherodom. As I started blogging, I was like, I want to write again. I want to, there's something about that connected me to just a version of myself that I always felt free in. So I started writing again. And then I used to always do poetry as like in workshops in high school and stuff. So I just started going to open mics and doing poetry to draw in audience to get them to follow my blog. And then I realized something about speaking my story in front of other people, it was just cathartic. It was super healing. And then being aware that I could show up that way and noticing how people responded just to the truth was something that helped me in my healing journey. And it just turned, and that's one of the monikers I have for myself, is that I'm a truth teller. No matter what it is, when it comes to my integrity, I'm always going to tell the truth. I'm always going to tell my side of the story. And I think that's something that we suppress in women, especially. We want to silence the voices of women. We create an atmosphere where we either don't care what they have to say, or we want to gaslight them and change what they have to say to fit our narrative. So I mean, the whole being able to write about my experiences and heal that way instead of just laughing everything off, which was my trauma response to everything. I was able to blend everything together and
Yeah.
just kind of get it out. And through being able to process it out, I felt myself like rooting out those cobwebs that were messing with my mental health and finally getting to a clearer understanding of who I was underneath all that suffering.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I mean that's a journey. It's
Yeah. It's
painful.
not over. I'm annoyed. Like I was like, okay, there's a journey. You get a flag at the end. It's green. Yay, mental health. I am
I made it
healed.
through.
I'm still rooting out bullshit. I'm so mad about it, but it waxes and wanes, and sometimes there are very like gentle parts of healing. Like one of the things I realized is that going into a marriage so young, and I felt like I lost track of my femininity. I got pregnant right away, and then he was a little irresponsible, so I ended up like doing a lot of the legwork and protecting and providing and all of this stuff. I realized that, okay, now I get to the part where I get to soften back into my femininity, and my creativity has helped with that. And being like, oh, yeah, I don't feel like doing that. I don't have to work that hard. Not today, not for you. So there's been some fun parts of the healing. I like saying no now. It's super fun.
But that's a beautiful thing because I think there's a lot of women who struggle with that balance, right?
Yeah.
Of that masculinity and
Yeah.
not being able to be in our feminine. And there's a lot of judgment on that, right? Like you kind of talked about this idea of identity, right? For you,
Hmm.
particularly being a black woman, like that that femininity is intertwined, right, in those experiences of where does that have the permission even to come in, right? Where do you get that permission to be able to honestly just be who
Yeah.
you are without feeling that burden? How's that part of the journey for you been in finding that voice?
It's difficult. I still struggle with it because I am a single mom. So I do, and believe it or not, motherhood operating in as a mom, that's considered masculine energy. And I'm like, I nerd out on this stuff, right? Because it was just such an awakening process for me, and realizing that I just have the theory that Black women, especially single moms, especially, we're like superheroes because we have that balance of masculine and feminine energy because of how we've had to show up. And there's this thing where we're like, oh, a Black woman, she'll do it. She's strong. She's resilient. But then on the other hand, we also get typecast as too masculine or too controlling or too moody or whatever it is, too this, too that, too much. And then it's like, we have for years, for I don't know how long, been trying to soften into our feminine in a society that won't let us. If you look at Black women, how our hair is always done, nails done, like we like to sit pretty with, I mean, these are themes you see across a lot of Black women, and it's just like a, why can't we have that softness? Why is it we're in a society that really like uplifts European beauty standards? We're in a society where we are not that girl. So it's kind of like we're known as like being loud and mouthy and hood, and it's kind of like these are stereotypes that other people put on us. And if enough people tell you that, you start to believe that it's who you are. And for me, I had to really settle down into, you know what? I'm a human being who has emotions, and I'm a human being who can handle my shit and take care of some shit. I protect and provide for my children. I have my 9 to 5 job. I have these different aspects of poetry where I run my events, where I'm a boss chick, but also I want softness and grace. I want to be able to, rest in creativity and just kind of flow and be easy. And I have all of those parts about me. I think it's been difficult to settle into because I had to realize that I can be both. And it's not even a matter of getting rid of masculine energy. It's just a matter of what do you want to lean into in this moment? And if that's what you want to do, that's okay, regardless of how people are going to receive you. When you walk into a room with power and confidence as a woman, people are going to react to that a certain way. And it's up to me to push back on that kind of negative energy and be who I'm going to be anyway, whether people like it or not. Because I think there's just no pleasing people, and yeah, that's wounded feminine energy anyway, to people please and try to
Mm.
into what people want you to be. I'm wild. I'm going to be whatever I want to be in that moment.
And
It
but I love that, right? Like that, but that is what I think. And I'm going to say from me, right? Like I said, I saw you at the spoken word event, right? And I
yeah,
was just like, there were a lot of performers, but you caught my attention right away because of the honesty that you
yeah.
have in the way that you say all these things, right? And the honesty of being able to hold the complexities of femininity and that masculinity also of the
Mhm.
driver, the pusher, right? Like I am this person who walks in the room and you do all eyes on you and you are, you command the attention, right? But at the same time, your beautiful rawness and authenticity really like draws people to you. And I wonder, like, I would think for me as a woman, like you said, we have parallel stories, right? So when I walked in
Mhm.
there, it was my first time ever in spoken word,
Really?
time ever for sure. Never. I'm not a poet like I write, but I write a blog. I don't write
Mm.
poetry necessarily. So to get up and read poetry was like very intense for me. And right away, like the experience was that you made me feel comfortable. I don't know if you even remember, but you did make me feel comfortable
I
because
do remember. Yeah.
and it was like you encouraged me as I was up there, but I got to ask you, like, how often do you, cuz it is leading with love, right? So your
Mhm.
pain has given you this empowerment and you have created these beautiful things with it, but it's not just for you. It's for your audience. It's for all the
Mhm.
women who don't have the words or the level of being ready to even say those things out loud that you're inspiring. And how has that impacted your journey in this, like the women who are following you and maybe even the men, right? Like just the people who are
Yeah.
drawn to your words.
I think that that's definitely the part that keeps me going on days when I don't feel like it, because there is something about the transparency of it that, or just being surprisingly painfully introverted. Sometimes I don't have the energy to give to others in that way, but I realize that communion is kind of the space where we level the playing field, and it really just takes one person to speak up and be like, you know what, My truth is different from yours. I know that we're all supposed to be on the status quo and say this and yay, I am enjoying my life, but I'll be the one to say I'm not happy. I don't like that. I don't want to do that, or
Mm,
whatever the truth is in that moment. And I think we kind of talked about this before. It- your authenticity is not always going to be palatable to other people, but it's something that is pure and it's honest and it's true. So no matter how you're coming up to the table, people know that they're dealing with something that's real. And I think that settling in that energy and being okay with showing up that way kind of gives everybody a sigh of relief. Like, okay, I can too. I can take the mask off. I don't have to go along to get along. I don't have to be a part of groupthink or flow with the synergy of the room. I can flip tables and fuck shit up if I want to, if that's the feeling of the day. And that's something I feel I had to get real with myself maybe a few years ago. It's like, this is more of a calling. It went from just being something that I like to do, and oh, okay, you're an entrepreneur, you're building your brand, to like, you are called to do this because there's healing in it. I literally did a couple shows in Miami, and I did one at this bar, and I was just doing like one of my ratchet poems about how he going cheat kind of deal. And after I get off stage, this woman comes up to me in a bar. We're drinking, partying, whatever. And she comes up to me and she's just bawling. And she was just so touched and moved by the performance, because I think it's something, when we're not conscious of how we live our lives every day, we can flow into these things that we're just not comfortable with. You can be in an entire abusive relationship and he's staying out late and he's always on his phone and doing sneaky stuff, and your brain will tell you, I'm okay with this, this is cool, I'm a cool girl, I'm a nice girl, I don't care, la la la. And
mm,
then a poet comes up and you're like, what we not going to do? And it hits you like, I have been experiencing a trauma that I haven't been real with myself about. And
mm,
sometimes when someone just comes to the table real, or I've had men come up to me and be like, okay, I've been that dude and said that stuff and been acting that way, and I feel a little like, it roots up the emotions. It brings reality to the forefront. Your brain can't trick you from believing or seeing it anymore. It's just like, it's the truth in front of you. How you gonna act? What you gonna do? So it's kind of like, that's why recently I was just like, truth teller is part of what I do. I have to hold myself accountable and make sure that I'm always in reality for myself, and then it's something that I can bring to the table for other people, and it doesn't make me popular all the time. It's not a
popular is
fun job.
overrated. Popular is
Oh,
overrated, so it's okay. Like, I think it is more about your authenticity, right? And popular sometimes is what gets us into pain more than the power, right? Because we're
oh
trying to
yeah.
please others and do for others rather than just be authentically truthful about who we are, right? Whether that's walking away from something or just saying no, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but that's huge and so powerful, especially this idea of perception, because people are
Mhm.
we're so stuck in that, right? And so truth is something that is so hard for us to be honest about because we live in a society of perception being the key, right?
Oh my goodness. Don't get me started on society and in the BS. Like the whole everything's fine. We're not in a pandemic. Go back to work. As if people weren't just like dying all around us, and there hasn't been like this uproar of just a paradigm shift, and we're all trying to ignore it and get back to, we keep saying, the new normal. Right. I'm like, I think we just need to get rid of the word normal and just be like, what does life just look like day by day for you individually? And then how does that feed into the collective? I think we do a lot. I think I had spoken to you about this too. Just, I understand from like a government standpoint how it makes sense to disseminate information if you get everybody on the same like thinking process. If you feed everybody the same thing and try to control them that way, that makes sense. But we're meant to be individual thinkers. We're meant to examine information and decide how it sits with our spirit and how it works with us individually. We're not meant to just go along with the status quo. And I think that's the problem, is that in order to fit in order to be popular with how social media is set up and how that works, we create an environment where people just want to be liked. And it's like you have to like yourself so that you can show up the way you need to be to affect change in the world, instead of just going along with the powers that be. So I think it's a lot deeper than just like, oh, self-love and authenticity. It's really like it's going against the grain of how society is set up, really. And you feel it when you show up in big energy, when you show up in short energy. Folks don't
Mhm.
like that. It upsets the energy in the room, and it makes you feel like a rebel. But Jesus was a rebel. He wasn't just like, everyone loves me, yay. Like, he was crucified. He was not liked. And so yeah, when you go into that, it's just kind of like you're not going to be popular if you're going to live an authentic life. But at the end of the day, when you lay your head down like on your bed, you're gonna be like, yeah, I fucked shit up today.
I'm a disruptor, right? Like, but that's
Yes, interrupting.
interrupting is it, right? But that's it. That's why I think the status quo is so overrated, right? Facts, logic, it's truth, right? Like
Yeah.
it is. It's overrated. And the truth of the matter is you're gonna be that irritating piece of like sand in someone's shoe that like is going to bother people. But you know what? I think you also weed out the people that you don't necessarily want around that way, right? And that
Oh
is how
yeah.
change is made. Change is only made that way, and
Yeah.
we have to shift people's perspective on that. And actually, speaking of that, because we did talk a lot, I want to know, like, in terms of who you are now, right? We talked about kind of like your shift just in from your marriage to now, but what about like your upbringing? How different is the way you are able to live your life in this authentic way from how you were raised and what you were raised in? And all natural substances well
Woo!
said.
That's a loaded one. I have so many theories about this. And yeah, a lot of when I went into my deeper parts of therapy, was for relationship trauma. And then I realized a lot of it was like family childhood trauma, and not like any major abuse or anything like that. It's just like, I think that the baby boomer generation, especially that generation, people of color, especially Black people, I think that the breaking the cycle, the we got to do better, the we're shifting the paradigm was based on fitting in a capitalistic society. It was all about money. It was all about, we buy houses now, we have good credit, like Black people are moving on up. But there was nothing emotional about it. There was no extra nurturing. Like, and then so I feel like there's like big identity things I had to kind of root up in my own healing, and realize that in my childhood, I was very interested in pleasing my parents. I was very interested in being a part of the story of, look, we're doing better. I got to make good money, and I have to get married young. My parents, they got together when they were like 13. They married at like 17. And then they had us and got better jobs and bought houses. So I was just like, this is what I have to do and what my life has to look like. And then, mix in like the Christianity thing. And then I was like, and then on top of that, I have to be a deaconess in the church. Like, I used to lead Bible studies. I was a deaconess. I used to do sermons and stuff. And at
Wow.
the time, it felt like so authentic to me. But I realized that my relationship with God is so different from how they were set up, and my pathway in life is so different. It's nice to have a 9 to 5 and have that, like, I make good money and, I'm gonna buy a house. But no, I want to do art. I want to do creative things, and I want to connect. I want to show people God in a different way. It's not behind a pulpit. It's going to be writhing around on the floor talking about crazy poetry things,
Yeah.
I think that the person I was before was very controlled. I think I grew up kind of, it was my parents, they saw how intellectual I was, so they kind of like pushed that, and I rebelled. I got bad grades in school. I didn't go to college because there was like an inner rebellion in me, like I don't want to be just this. I feel like there's something different. And then once I left that marriage, I realized I could do whatever I want. And I had a nervous breakdown because that's what I want.
Well, and sometimes that's the catalyst to realizing you can do whatever you want to, right? Isn't it? Like it spurs and triggers all this opening. It's like a wound just like pops open.
Oh
And
yeah,
you can't ignore it anymore.
absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's what it was, is that I thought I was going to be like my parents and have like a very traditional, like I am going to be a wife and I'm going to pop out babies and cook dinner and clean, and I was like, "Oh no, I don't. Mm-mm." And then now I run shit. And that feels natural to me.
Mm.
It feels natural to me that I have a monthly show that I host and put on from top to bottom, that I go into performances, I plan my set, I know my shit, I write books. That feels more like me, like just running shit and not being tamed by the kind of like and I think that comes from the baby boomer mindset. We keep trying to push into this society with traditional relationships. There's all these gender wars where it's like, if she don't cook and clean, sir, I'm going to work.
Right? I'm sorry, I'm building a business. Right?
Right, right.
You got a
I come to the table with
bedroom,
more. Right.
right?
Yeah, just the minimizing of women into that space where they're glorified servants. And it's just like, no, I bring so much more to the table. So I think that
Mm.
it's been funny because I am this person. And then there's a part of me that's just like, okay, I make dinner every night for the kids. And when I'm in relationships, sometimes I fall into that traditional role, but it's just like the opening of being all of those people. So growing up, there are parts of myself that I had to abandon on the wayside to grow into more, to expand into
Mm.
more. And then now that I've become more, I've kind of picked up some of those things. Be like, okay, that's still me. I can take that. I like that. So it's just been like an all over the place healing journey.
But like as you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I totally get it. Like I do, and I think it's very aligned. I grew up in a very religious family, not
Hmm.
Christianity, but with a Muslim family, right? That's part of my
Hmm.
brown girl story. But I am the antithesis to some degree of all of the things that I was raised in. But yet I keep pieces of it, right? Like it's the
Yeah.
idea that we have these really core roots that ground us, and they're part of
Hmm.
these belief systems that are deeply, deeply ingrained in who we are. But yet at the same time, there's this freedom of the branches that are spreading out, right? Like,
Yeah.
and they are so wide and expansive. They're not, there's nothing that can contain them, right? And I think you started
Exactly.
off in saying, right, there's no box. There's no
Yeah.
box, there's no label, because there doesn't need to be. And I think some people, some personalities are so big that there needs not to be. So I got to ask you, woman to woman, right here. And I think we probably have some folks who are either going to watch this later or watching now. How is the complexity of this strength and empowerment as a woman impacted the way that men approach this? Because I think I personally have totally struggled with this, because it's like, oh, you got to have, like, I'm a heavy load, and not, look, I'm heavy. I'm
Yeah.
a big package, right? Like, we are
Yeah.
big packages. How has that been in the dating world, or even just in that interaction with guys? Because it's complicated.
It's complicated. I think I have so many like thoughts about where we are as far as like the dynamics between men and women, especially in the Black community. And I one of the reasons I didn't want to heal is that I knew I was going to come into more self-esteem. And even in relationships, like there would be small things. I used to be with these guys who used to like put me down in small ways. And my first thing that popped in my brain would be like, but I would like suppress that and be like, okay, whatever
Mm.
he wants this. Like I had an ex-boyfriend who was like, I have these princesses and they treated me like crap. And my first thought was, I'm a queen. What you gonna do? You ain't gonna like me. So I really slowed down my healing process, or didn't want to do it somewhere subconsciously, because I knew it was going to affect my relationships with men. When you show up as a strong, empowered woman, it's intimidating. I was literally at an event wearing these little shorts and white sandals and a rainbow jacket, and I'm talking to one of the performers there, and he's like, yeah, so when I walked into the room, you were intimidating. Women showing up in confidence is intimidating. I think it's something that we attribute to white women because they've been the standard here in this country. But then it's like a black woman with opinions and with who shows up in a room empowered and doesn't always have to speak and say what she's saying until it's time to say it at the right moment. And when she says it, it's going to be, impactful and meaningful. I think people do not, it rubs people the wrong way, and especially men. And I came to the conclusion, and that's why a lot of my work now is talking to women about what is the alternative. You don't have to wait around for a man to come save you. What does it look like to not be rescued, to just show up in
Mm.
all of who you are?
Mm.
But the reality of it is, the part that people don't like, you might be alone. You just might. And the reason I have to continue with that is
Yeah.
I want my daughters to know that you can live a fulfilling, poppin' life in high self-esteem. It's super lit, but you might be alone. That might be a lot for a man to handle, and you might run into men who want to tame that energy, or men who don't know how to. I still, this is my traditional stuff. Men who don't know how to lead a woman like that, who don't know how to be in relationship with a woman like that, who don't know how to figure out what a partnership looks like, because I'm
Mm.
not that woman from back in the day. I'm this new kind of woman. So how you going to act? So as far as like dating, I just knew it was going to be a detriment of my dating world. And actually, the drive-in show that I used to do was more like hip hop acts and stuff. And the new event that I do now, I've kind of like recalibrated it away from hip hop acts because I took a lot of blows. I would have men come into my orbit, come into my show. They would book the show with me, but then not make eye contact. They would get on the stage and thank everybody involved in the show and never say my name. And even now, I have like hyper masculine men. They come to my events, and I'm gonna say it because if they go to anybody else's event run by a man, they take a picture and it's like, oh, hashtag this. I was here looking. I was at this man's event. When they come to my event, it's like a mystery show that they all attended. No one says my name. Being a woman, and that's why my name is on everything. Everything I do, it's whiskey,
Mhm.
whiskey nights, whiskey and friends, with coffee with whiskey. Everything has my name on it because I'm a woman, and I'm going to assert that you're going to respect me here. And it's something that I had to get away from the hip hop kind of audience, because I was like, I don't want to start having these conversations where I'm like, I'm not feeling the respect here. This is not what we're gonna do. So I know just from showing up in entertainment that there's this kind of like clash with it. So in relationships, yeah, it's just all sorts of, I think it's fascinating to men, but on some level it's wanting to tame me, and I don't like that
Mhm.
energy. Like, I'm not here to be tamed. I need, wide space to just like travel freely. And I think that it's frightening because I'm not going to deal with a lot of BS. I hold myself very accountable. And it's like, I think it rubs people the wrong way to watch. If I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. That seemed minimizing. Or, oops, did I lie? Or did I get that wrong? Or I think when you show up that way, a lot of people ain't going to want to deal with you. And especially like men in this environment, your girl's not popular. That's fine.
But that's true. Like I think that authenticity and rawness is not something all men are ready for or used to. I'm an interrupter, right? Like so I get it.
Yeah.
I get it entirely, right? Like I show up as I show up. And
Yeah.
it wasn't me before. It wasn't me before. It was I was the tamed one. I was the one who kind of like suppressed all those pieces of myself for a long, long time, right? So Jal Logic says, but I have no idea. Oh, I don't know what it is to be a woman, but I know what it is to be confident and hated because of it from people in general. So in those regards, I can relate. Yeah, I mean, and
Yeah.
that's true. It's not just women, right? But I have no idea what it means to be a confident woman. And it's interesting because so for me, like I remember that in my marriage, one of the comments that I got a lot at the beginning was, well, you're not confident enough, right? And it's funny because when I became confident, then it was exactly that, right? How do I tame this person who is too much up, like too much, right? Like and once I
There's
got
no
my
such
voice
thing.
and I got my confidence, it was different, right? And the response is different, but it's like men, some men, not all, I would say. I think there are a lot of, I'm sure there are a lot of good guys out there, right? Like, but I think
Oh
there are
yeah.
some who don't know how to handle that confidence for sure.
Yeah.
So there's the dating world, but then you're a mom, right? Like, so more than that, right?
Mhm.
This balance of professional artist mother is a lot. And you have daughters in
Yeah.
particular. How old are your girls?
10 and 15.
10 and 15. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, how has your process of doing all of this influenced the way that you are as a mother to them?
Oh, it's helped me to show up just more honest. And like I was saying earlier, like the question is always like, how do you juggle all of it badly? Sometimes I'm just not good at it. And that just it involves informing them of when I'm not going to be good at something. It involves, I think, looking at my childhood and just the way we kind of are taught to operate with our parents is that, they handle things and it's kind of a secret thing. You don't know what's going on. You don't know how they're handling adulthood, but it seems like they got it and they're good. And then, like, as you get older, it's difficult to connect with them from that, like, woman to woman or man to man or man to woman. And my thing is like, well, how do I navigate that, especially as a single mom? If it were a two-parent household, that'd be one thing, but that's just not a luxury that I have. So honesty and transparency has to be all across the board in every part of my life. And I think it's most difficult with the children. Like when I smoked, I told them about it. I was like, look, mommy has anxiety issues and I smoke weed. This is what mommy does, and this is why, and it's legal here, and this is what it means, and all of that. And I think that after doing that, I realized, like, I just want to be honest with them on the days that I don't have it, where it's like I just need a little break. Like, being honest with them and letting them know my personality, letting them know, like, I have shows and stuff, but I'm an introvert and I do need to power down from when I go out and have shows. I do need time to chill in my room to just like decompress, or if I'm doing something and they come along and I'm just like, okay, I need to think right now. I don't have it together. I think that, and then showing up that way at home, and then being clear with how I am when we go out as well. My 10-year-old, we were at like at Applebee's or something, and when the waitress came, I would just like engage with her as I normally would, and she was like, it's kind of creepy how you keep like looking her in the eye and talking to her that way. And I'm like, because you have to assert yourself, because it's that awkward girl syndrome that we all try to
Mhm.
romanticize. I don't want you guys to be that. Awkward means dissociated. It means that you're not connecting with your body and you're leaning into this whole like head down. I'm not confident enough to do this. No, you can do whatever you want. You can have that confidence and you can start honing it now. And I want them to see me showing up, looking people in the eye, being assertive and being like who I am, so they know that this is a way that you can operate in the world. It's and it's gonna be weird. People are going to look at you weird, and it may be like going against the grain, but it's showing up in that confidence that'll keep you safe ultimately. My main goal for them in this day and age, with like black femicide being real and where we are, that's going to keep you safe. There are people who are dangerous just walking around looking for people who are just not all there, who are head up in the clouds. No, show up assertive, show up looking people in the eye and asserting your humanity, and that's the thing that's going to keep you safe. So for me, it's imperative that I show up. I call it like integrity work, and I examined, who are you at work? Who are you in the poetry world? Who are you as a mom? Who are you with family? Put all those parts together and be one cohesive person. So you show up the same in all of these spaces.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that was important work for me to do, because I don't want to code switch. I don't want to have to keep up with who I'm supposed to be. I want to always give this part of me, give the truth of who I am. And I think that's the greatest influence I can have on them. That's the greatest thing that they can just remember, is that mommy was super weird, and we saw how people reacted to her, and she wasn't always popular, but she was herself. So
Mm.
I just feel like in all of the areas, I try my best to show up the same. I have to walk it back sometimes, because we'll be watching Disney movies, and I'll be like, Disney. But I just want them to have like a
This is
real
colorful.
experience of me. I'm so tired of talking about Bruno.
Ah! Oh, um, so I think like, but that's huge. It's so huge because and I am in the same space, right? I have three boys, but I have one daughter.
Yeah.
And the way that I have raised her, also being that she was two when I separated. So I really
Hmm.
like younger than two, actually, not even fully two, right? And I have raised her so differently as a single mother, but also
Hmm.
as I think there's it's an interesting thing because for me it's also it's like this permission to raise her the way I want to raise her
Yeah.
because I'm single. Like I don't have
Right.
anybody attached to it, right? Like
Right.
I get to truly tell her what it is to be a woman from my lens, right?
Yeah.
And what I wish someone would have told me. So I think all the things you
Yeah.
just listed, the honesty, the accountability, the just be like authentically you, whether or not it works for people, and the beauty of that openness is huge to give our girls because we didn't get that. We were
No.
told something totally we were told about the box.
Yeah.
Put in the box, right? And
Or
then what
not even
is
told.
that?
I was just modeled it, and in my psyche, I was just like, well, this is how I have to be. This is how it goes. And no one was providing other options. I just assumed that this is what women do. This is how it is. But there was and that's why the storyteller thing, there are so many parts of a story that we miss. And I feel like, especially with parenting with adults versus children, there's so much of the story that adults try to leave out to protect the children, but really they're walking around with being able to understand the energy of what's happening, but not being able to fully grasp it because no one is speaking to them. So it's not easy, but it's like, okay, keeping them informed on what's going on just so they know. And especially like these kids today, we're in a whole global pandemic. I mean, the things that they have seen, what's going on in the world, the social media that they have at their hands. Like my daughter is just woke, and I don't know how it happened. I had nothing to do with it. We were just talking one day, and she was like, "Yeah, because they appropriate the culture." I was like, "Whoa!" They're exposed to this stuff, and they're forming their own opinions and identities, and it's like you can either be a part of it, or you can pretend that things are that you're controlling the narrative and you're in control. You are not. The world is teaching these kids. You got to jump in there
Yeah,
and,
no.
and be a part of it somehow. So it's not I think it's difficult because I think that my parenting style is very hands off. It's very like, I want you to take control over your life, and I'm here for your guidance. I'm here for advice. I'm here to be like, do you think you should do that? Is that really your friend? What are you going to do next? And I think that that's just not the way that I was taught mothering or how it goes. It's just kind of this authoritarian thing. And I'm just like, no, let's just vibe out and y'all be people. Cause at the end of the day, I don't have much control over this. I don't want to do too much molding. So you feel like you have to live up to my expectations. Cause at the end of the day, it's not about me. It's going to be your life. So I think I'm here as a guide to teach you what life can potentially look like, to show you what it looks like as a woman to put yourself first, to follow your dreams, to juggle these things. And you can decide. And I tell my 10-year-old all the time, I'm like, you live here, you might not like everything that I do, just change it when you get older.
Hmm.
And but I'm taking care of you. There's nothing you could do about it. Like in
Mhm.
this moment, just take note of the things you don't like and make your lifestyle different. You're not always going to like me. I'm a hippie. Like I know it drives you nuts. But that's okay. I'm not saying you have to live like me or be like me. I just want you to have like control over your own mental and your own journey.
Yeah. But that and again, like I think though, but it's transformational. It's transformational, and I would imagine that if we were to talk to your girls, right? Like I'm sure that the way that you impact them in those ways of allowing for that space for them to be, just be, right? And recognizing as a parent, I think for me the hardest thing has been the letting go, and the letting go of control, right? The control
Yeah.
of who they're going to be. And it's true, like it's unconscious, like we're so deeply ingrained in something, we're raised in something that we feel that it's the one way, and we may not even realize that we feel that until we experience it. So for me it was like the college experience for my son and my oldest, I think, like, and
Oh, I could imagine.
shifting that whole mindset has been so different with my second one and now my third one coming up, right? Like but I've learned. So you talked about storytelling, and actually you
Yeah.
are going to be performing because your art
Oh
is
yeah.
storytelling, right? So we have a quick commercial, and as soon as we come back, we are going to hear from Whiskey Girl and her amazing performance. So we will be back. Hi, my name is Maria, but you are soon going to know me as Brown Girl Interrupting. Um, and what I mean by that is that very soon, hopefully, you're going to be following my blog. I am a writer, and I started writing because I was married, I had children, and then my life changed when I separated, and I did a lot of learning and reflecting and growing in that process of change, because change always leads us to that. And I've decided to share that with the rest of the world, because sometimes hearing that someone else is going through the same thing as you, or understanding and putting words to the feelings and experiences we're having, helps us to heal from them, or grow from them, or learn from them. And so that's what my blog is. It's writing about life, healing, relationships, parenting, dating, marriage, pain, love, mistakes, growth, and coming out whole still in all of it as a human, flawed, but always open to new things. So that's my life, that's my journey, and it's written in this blog. But my hope is that you are going to go to www.browngirlinterrupting.com and join and subscribe to the blog and read all about my story to help you maybe gain some perspective on yours. Right. So, yes, please go subscribe to the blog. And actually, I've been on a hiatus from the writing for a little bit, but I just started again this week. So, please go check out my newest post. It's called Pain, Power, and Facing Reality. And it's actually based on the show a little bit. So, it's going to give you a little background on some things. And now, Whiskey Girl, I am going to give you the floor.
Oh, very cool. Thank you for allowing me to perform here. I just love it, love it. So, this is from my new book, Sovereign. And really, it's a book about just coming up to a level of higher consciousness and loving in thought process, and what it is to maintain that. So I love our conversation that we were talking about, just kind of showing up in big energy, how people aren't always going to understand you. So this is a poem that I wrote that kind of illustrates that. It's called Something Only Heaven Understands. Over explaining yourself is a trauma response. So she stopped, buried the footprints on the pathway to being understood. Never mind, she's good because they are just not going to get it. Abuse and control, demons themselves spoon fed it to her psyche, and they are not ever going to like me. Play on repeat in her anxiety riddled head. I choose me instead, whispered softly, and she's healing, and they're leaving, and she's feeling blue again. So she sit with her darkness and no new friends, sacrifice to be a light, fight or flight. She looks weak, but she's a sprite, lithe and agile, and how she moves through the bullshit, still covered in the spittle of her invalidators. Their mouths move so fast they don't even know that they haters, as if they could hate her more than the time she never loved herself. And queen means mastery over the enemy in the mirror, the only one who can hear her screams so loud, the only one who can watch her oppressed and further beat her down, her most dangerous abuser. Still, God used her, and they sit in the silence together. And God is working, and she is wondering how she got here. Though the message seems clear, it's the rules she don't quite know how to adhere to. Worship and weed don't quite seem right. Walks with God and binge eating, and more friends leaving, and she's alone. And God is home, but sometimes she still sleeps on the porch. Explosive torch illuminate the room, but burn their hands if they touch you. She is too much food. They'll be stuffed, and she will forever cry not enough when she is really too decadent. Maybe heaven sent or new age narcissist. Too many broken relationships. Her journey looks like graveyard, like the fine line between confident and crazy. I'm okay, and please come and save me, damsel. Yes, intermittent stress, but she's good. No rescue. Maybe hold her hand. Press forehead to hers and love her as best you can, with disclaimer that you have discovered something only heaven can understand. And she rise in the midst of torrential downpours, and her heart can't possibly take much more, and she's wet, and they watch, and she is numb but always moving, formidable, make herself oblivious to the pain, because even in the rain, she is raining. That's that piece.
Yes,
I
yes.
gotta get one of those. Where do you get that little soundtrack from? Just when I'm at home practicing, just to hit the button.
Right, that would be a great way, right, to have that, have that on, and that's perfect for those moments in the mirror. I just need that applause going right there, because I just have to remember
Exactly.
all the
You can't
power,
be me all
right?
the time.
I choose me instead. I love it, love it, love it. I mean, that spoke to me on so many levels. so many levels. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your
Oh,
gifts.
of
Thank you for
course.
sharing your time. I have been so honored to have you here today. And I know we didn't get to all of our chats in the comment. I don't know if there are any more that we need to look at, and definitely put those up there on the screen if we need to say all natural substances. Well said. Yes, lots of well said moments for Whiskey Girl. And Logic says she's preaching, preaching for sure, right? For sure. She was preaching, preaching before we even got on the screen, right?
All
Shanti,
right.
welcome to our Ranters family and union. You got to find people who will accept you for you. That's for sure,
Mm,
right? Like you have to. And when they don't, it's like you know how to weed them out, right? Like that's what
yeah,
you don't
it gets real
belong in
easy.
my space and you don't get my energy because
Yeah.
this is golden, right? This is golden. This is, and like you said, like I love it. I love it, right? Uh so before we leave off today though, are there any other like what are your ventures? What are some ways that people can find out more about Whiskey Girl and any performances you have coming up? This is your opportunity to grab some more audience members. We have a
I'm always here for that.
heavy showing in the Ranters Network.
Oh, well, yes, my label is my handle on Instagram and most places you can find me at Whiskey Girl DC. And on Instagram that'll lead you to my poetry page, but my events page is at Whiskey in the City on Instagram. So I'm always up to a bunch. Like I said, I have Whiskey Nights open mic, and that's every last Saturday of the month. And I actually open that show with a set, and then we go into an open mic segment and have featured artists. So I'm really excited about the next show on March 26th. And then I just had a show this past Friday that I was announcing like a full tour situation. So I will be hopefully coming to, cities near everyone soon. And mainly for direct support, I do have a Patreon. On the Patreon, it's kind of like the story behind the poems, and I talk a lot. I do podcast episodes with other artists or people who have their stories to tell, and I talk a lot about white supremacy and patriarchy and how it affects the mental health of Black women and Black people. So I'm very passionate about that work. It's just not popular all the time, and it's too much. It's a mouthful to speak about on stage. So, like the best full story that you can get of me is definitely on my Patreon, and it starts at the $3 level where I speak to artists and kind of give tips, up into like the $30 level where I talk about my abstinence journey and just like a bunch of other like tea. So it's really fun. I'm super passionate about it. I'm up to a lot. So the main thing would be just like following my handles and looking at my bio links and following the movement. There's a lot going on, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
I love it. I love it. And you shouldn't because you are paving the way for others and you are inspiring men and women and people, right? Young and old through your words and through your performances. So
I hope so.
I am so grateful that you came on and you shared your insights and your gifts with us tonight. This was beautiful, and I so
Yes,
appreciate you. And Living You Share Reviews is in the house. Welcome, peace fam. Yes, and so definitely check out Whiskey Girl and all of her endeavors. And if you're in the DC area, go to Whiskey Nights and
yeah.
check out the open mic. I mean, I don't know. I might have to. I know this is that's a kid weekend for me, but the next month I will be there. April.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
there.
that's my birthday show. You should stop through to that
Oh,
one,
well, then we gotta
definitely.
go. Well,
Mhm.
definitely birthday celebration. There ain't nothing like a birthday celebration. I'm all
Yeah.
about that. So yes, and who knows? Maybe I'll take the open mic. I got some pieces.
Mandatory.
I got some pieces. I mean, they're blog pieces, but I can certainly read some excerpts, right? So,
I would love you to do that. That's how I started with open micing. So that would just make my night if you did that.
I would love to do it because it's different. It's different getting up and like performing in front of people with your pieces. That's something that was definitely like a new step, right? Like
Yeah.
that's just taking it's that realness of it, right? Now I'm not just
Yeah.
writing this on paper and people are reading it, but I'm saying the words. They're coming to
Hmm.
life. And there's that that huge empowerment that comes with that. So
Yeah.
all my friends out there, I know there are a lot of folks who are writers. Come on and and just be a part of this process and this journey. And for everyone, again, let's go back, right? We are talking about pain to power and the healing, the power of healing and the power of humanity. So all of this
Mhm.
is the power of humanity, the stories that we tell of ourselves, that we are creating for ourselves, and living in your authentic rawness is part of finding
Yeah.
your healing. So continue to disrupt, interrupt, and resist the status quo and be you. And welcome back and come back next Sunday at 9 o'clock for Pain to Power Leading with Love, where we are going to feature actually a team that is from Small Wooden Box Concerts. And so we will be back here. And thank you again, Whiskey Girl. Thank you to Jaw Logic and the Ranters Union. This show was associated with the Ranters Network and Better Minds Interrupting. And also, if you haven't done it yet, and Whiskey Girl, I don't know if you've done it yet, but I have a co-hosted podcast on spiritual healing every Thursday night at 9 o'clock. So if you're ever available, check it out. Watch us on YouTube, and we will be back next week with everyone. So thank you, and have a wonderful evening and week.
Ketchup and cum stains on the couch. Sexy photos saved on the cloud. My sheets stay dirty. Is this living or is it loving? I don't think I care which it is. I just love when we let our bodies move like this. I wanna lay up inside your soul and fall asleep there. I wanna feel the breath of you rustling through my hair. I want to discover you, explore your lands, conquer your territories. If there is more of you waiting for me, I want to find it. Any mountain, I will climb it, place my flag at its peak. Let me sleep inside of you. Is this living or loving? Maybe a divine combination of the two. Let's not take this for granted. There is heaven in your reciprocation. I cannot hide my elation. It is in direct correlation to the feel of you loving me, sopping me up like biscuit and brown gravy, baby. Don't you stop it just to taste. You invest in the whole set of plates. That's right, I'm the cookware, I'm the oven, I'm the whole fucking kitchen, concocting the kind of creations that will have you full, yet greedily begging me for more. And I oblige out of pure adoration for you, beautiful. But this is